Welcome to the averages revision session. Why are averages important to us? Well, they're going to be covered by both your maths GCSE and your statistics GCSE. So what are averages? Averages are a way of showing a single value for a whole data set which is representative of the whole group. It is normally a number in the centre of the data, although there are some exceptions which I'll talk about later. There are multiple types of average, but the most common are all beginning with the letter M, which are the mean, the median, and the mode. So, the mean. The mean is the most commonly thought of average. If you said to someone calculate an average, it's what they would normally do. The mean is found by adding up all the data within a set and then dividing by how many pieces of data there are. So it is the sum of the data divided by the number of data. Or if you want to write the symbols, sigma x, sigma being sum of x, the data, divided by n, the number of pieces of data. The mode. The mode is the easiest of all the averages to find. It is just basically the number that is repeated the most often within your data set. To find, write your data in order from smallest to largest, and you will easily pick out the number that has been repeated the most often. It is possible to have a single piece of mode, which is the one number that's repeated the most often, or you can have two modes. Two modes mean that there are two numbers that are repeated the same number of times and more often than any other number in the data set. If, however, there are three or more pieces of data that are repeated the same number of times, more than any one others, we would not say there are three modes, we would say there are no modes. The median. The median is the average which is truly the centre of the data because it is the middle value when you place your data in order from smallest to largest. So how do we find the middle value? Well, the middle value is easy to find. If you know the number of pieces of data, you would add 1 to this and divide by 2, and that will tell you which number is the middle value. You would then write them in order from smallest to largest and count up until you found that number in the list. Alternatively, you could use the method of writing all your numbers smallest to biggest and marking off the largest and the smallest value in order and to keep going until you are left with one number in the middle, which is your median. However, there is an issue with this also. If you have an even number of pieces of data, you will not get a single number in the middle. So what would you do in this case? Well, you can still do exactly the same thing. You add the number 1 to the number of pieces of data that you have, and you divide by 2. However, this will give you a decimal. It will always be a half. So you'll get a number and a half. And that therefore means you have to find two numbers and find the value in between them. This would also be true if you were ticking off your values, largest and smallest each time, and you'll be left with two numbers in the middle. So what do you do to these two numbers that you're left with in the middle? Or in this case, say the example here, we want the 7.5 value, you would find the 7th value and the 8th value. Once you've got these two middle values, you add those two numbers together and divide by 2, and that will give you the median. So let's practice these skills now. Stop the video, pause it, and find the median, mean, and mode of the following numbers. Right, your answers. So the mode. From this data, it's quite easy. You can see there are 2 copies of 88 and only 1 copy of everything else. That means your mode is 88. It's there the most. The mean. We add all the numbers. We get 88, add 84, add 86, add 90, add 82, add 88, add 78. And then you divide that total by the number of data, which is 7. So you get 85.1 in this case to 1 decimal place. It's been rounded. It is okay to get a decimal answer for an average. Even though there are no decimals in our actual data, it's perfectly fine. Now, to find the median, first thing, we write our 7 numbers that we have smallest to largest, so 78 all the way up to 90. We have 7 pieces of data, so we can get 7 add 1, divide by 2. 7 add 1 is 8, divide by 2. The fourth number is our median. So it's easy to count up from 78 until you find the fourth value in our data is 86. So the median is 86. Now, if you've got large numbers of data, it's not always possible to write them smallest to largest. So instead of that, what we might well do is tabulate our data and say how many we've got of each number, and that would make it easier for us to actually work with. So you can still carry out all 3 averages on tabulated data. What you would need to do is, for the mean, carry out a multiplication before you do your sums to find the total. So why? Well, you would have so many copies of each number, so you need to multiply your first column, the number, by the second column, the frequency, to work out what the total of each number would be. And I'll show you an example in a minute. After you've done that, you'd write those answers down in another column, a third column, and you would add up all these values in the third column and then divide that total by the total frequency, which is normally the second column. So you'd get the frequency total and divide it into the total of the third column. That would be your mean. So here I've got an example to show you this. Here I've got data of the numbers 1, 2, 3, and 4. Now I've got 12 number 1s, 11 number 2s, 12 number 3s, and 8 number 4s. So what would I do? I would multiply 1 by 12 to get 12. All the ones are adding up to 12. 2 by 11 to get 22. 3 by 12 to get 36, and 4 by 8 to get 32. I then add up the 12, 22, 36, and 32 to get 102. So all the numbers in this table would add up to 102. I then work out the frequency total, which is 12 add 11 add 12 add 8, 43. And then I work out the mean. Now the mean is sigma Fn, which is the total of the third column, divided by sigma F, which is the total of the second column. So we've got 102 divided by 43, 2.372, etc., which would round to give me 2.4 to 1 dB. Remember, decimals are okay as means. So how do we find the mode? It's still easy to find the mode, even though we're not going to write all the values out. All we're looking for is the number which has the highest frequency, because that one would appear the most often. So if we look at the data again, we've got 2 different numbers which have the highest frequency. The highest frequency is 12, and that appears for both number 1 and number 3. We said we were allowed to have 2 modes, so we would say for this data the mode was 1 and 3. Finally, the median. Now the median's a little bit harder when you've got your data tabulated. First, what you need to do is find out which of the data would be the middle value. We can again do the total number of data, add 1, then divide by 2. So we've got 43 pieces of data, add 1 is 44, divided by 2, the 22nd value would be in my median. You can then find this value by adding up the frequencies as follows. So if I was to write these in order, the first 12 numbers are all going to be number 1. So the first number, the 12th number, would all be a number 1. That means the next number, the 2s, would start with the 13th number, and because there are 11, they got to the 23rd number. So then the 24th number would be the next number, the 3, and there are 12 of those, so they would go up to 35. So the 24th to the 35th number would all be number 3s. That means the 36th number would be a 4, all the way up to 43, which is the last digit, would be a 4. So I've now got the order and the number of those orders. So I'm looking for the 22nd value. Well, the 22nd value is going to be between 13 and 23. So that means a 2 is going to be our median. Okay, let's again practice these skills then with data in table format. Work out the mode, the mean, the median of the data. Pause in the video. Okay, So what were our answers this time? Well, let's start with the mode again, because that's going to be the easiest. The mode is the number with the high, or the points in this case, with the highest frequency. So you find the highest frequency, which is 18, and that tallies to 2 points. So the mode in this case is going to be 2. To find the mean, we said we multiply the points by the frequency, the first column by the second. So we have 0 multiplied by 9 is 0, 1 multiplied by 11 is 11, 2 multiplied by 18 is 36, 3 multiplied by 7 is 21, 4 fours are 16, and 5 multiplied by 1 is 5. I then add up this third column. So I've got 0, add 11, add 36, add 21, add 16, add 5, which gives me 89. I add up my frequencies. All these add up together to give me 50. So the mean is then this total of the third column, 89, divided by the total of the frequency column, 50. 89 divided by 50 is 1.78. Now that's an exact answer, so I'm not going to round it. It's only 2 decimal places. That's quite okay. Finally, the median. Well, we said we use the total frequency to find the median. So we've got 50 add 1 is 51. Divide it by 2, the 25th and a half value is our median. So we said we need to work out the order of the numbers. So we've got 9 zeros. So 1 to 9 values written in order would be a 0. That makes the 10th value a 1. So 10 add the first next 11 would all be a 1. So that gives me 20. 10 to 20 are 1s. The next 18 are going to be 2s, so the 21st to the 38th value are going to be 2s, and so on and so on. Now I don't really actually have to explain any higher than that, because we're after the 25th and a half value, and 25 and a half is between 21 and 38, so again, the median is a 2. Now, things to notice, the mode, the mean, and the median are all 2 or roughly 2. And you'll find that a lot. The averages will be roughly the same for your data sets. And now finally, the last ones we need to look at are data where instead of actually knowing the individual datas, we actually know what group the data would fit in. So we do not know their actual numbers, but we know which group of numbers they fit into. This would be called group data. Now, if it's represented like this, you can actually not find the exact values of some of the averages, but you can find an estimate, a rough answer of what the mean, for example, would be. So, how do you find the mean from group data? Well, first, because we don't know any of the actual numbers within the group, we just know it's in the group, we have to find a representative value to act as the values for that group. And we use the midpoint of the group. Now the midpoint is the middle value, and we find it by adding the smallest number in that group to the biggest number in the group and dividing by 2. Once you found your midpoint, you then do what we did similarly to what we did to the previous data in table form. We multiply the midpoint by the frequency. So you multiply each midpoint of each group by the frequency of that group. You then write that in a separate column, and you add all those values up to get a total, an estimated total for what the data would all add up to. You then find the total frequency, as we've done previously, and you divide the estimated total of the data divided by the total frequency. And I've got an example to show you next. So here we are, we've got groups 1 to 10, 11 to 20, 21 to 30, and 31 to 40. So we need to find the midpoints. Now, you'll get points and marks for finding these out at GCSE. So you have 1 add 10 is 11, divided by 2, 5.5. 11 add 20 is 31, divided by 2 is 15.5. 21 add 30 is 51. 51 divided by 2 is 25.5. And 31 add 40 is 71, divided by 2 is 35.5. So these are my midpoints. I'll be told my frequencies, and they've told me they're 12, 11, 12, and 8. So now, instead of doing numbers multiplied by the frequency, I'm going to do the midpoint multiplied by frequency. So I get 5.5 multiplied by 12 is 66. 15.5 multiplied by 11 is 170.5. 25.5 multiplied by 12 is 306. And 35.5 multiplied by 8 is 284. I then sum these four numbers up, and they all add up to 826.5. Once again, I sum up my frequency to get 43. So our mean is going to be the sum of frequency multiplied by midpoint, which is 826.5, the last column total, divided by the frequency total, which is 43. And that gives me 19.2209, etc., which gives me 19.2. Averages of group data, the modal class. Now the modal class is the mode. You can't say the specific number that appears the most because we don't know the individual numbers. However, we can say which class has got the mode in it. That's known as the modal class. Now we work that out by working out the highest frequency for each class. So we want to know which class has the highest frequency. So if you're looking at this data on the slide, we can see there are two classes that have the highest frequency. They both have 12. And these are the groups 1 to 10 and 21 to 30. We know we're allowed two modes, so we're allowed two modal classes if we have them. And in this case, we have 1 to 10 and 21 to 30 being the modal classes. The last one, the median. Once again, the hardest of them all. So the median is hard to estimate in group data. It's first possible to establish which number is the median, as we've done previously. We know we have the total frequency, add 1 and divide by 2. So we've got 43, add 1 is 44, divided by 2 is 22. We now need to find where the 22nd value is. Once again, we can work out the first 12 numbers, 1 to 12, are going to be in the group 1 to 10. The next 11, 13 to 23, are going to be in the group 11 to 20. The next 12 values, 24 to 35, are all in the third group, 21 to 30. And the last 8 digits, 36 to 43, are all in group 31 to 40. Now we want the 22nd value, and we can see the 22nd value is very close to 23, but it's still within the 11 to 20 group. And because it's close to 23, it's going to be very at the top end of that group, because it's more likely to be at the top end because it's right near the last value in the group. So we then have to work out what number it is. So we know that we are 22 subtract 12, 10 places into this group. There are 11 of them with 10 places in. So we would write 10 as a fraction over the total number, 11. So we're 10 11ths into the group. We would want to multiply that number by the group size. To find the group size, you'd take the biggest value and subtract the smallest value. So in this case, 20 subtract 11, the group size is 9. We would then do 10 11ths multiplied by 9 and find out that we are 8 and 2 11ths into this group. Now, this value is then added on to the highest value of the previous group to give an estimate of the median. Now, the previous group is 10. So the highest point is 10, add 8 and 2 11ths, we're around 18 and 2 11ths in this group. Remember though, this is an estimate. We can't say it's definitely that because we do not know individual values. We call this interpolation. Okay, so interpolation is where you do this with your group. And finally, we're going to practice those skills. Remember, this is the hardest average skill that you'll be doing at GCSE. So, find the modal group, the mean and the median of the following group data. Pause and come back after you've done it. Okay, so what value should you have? Well, the modal group is the one with the highest frequency. The highest frequency here is 46, and 46 is for the 40 to 60 group. So the modal group is A is greater than 40 but less than or equal to 60. Now to find the estimated mean. First we need to find out the midpoint for all these groups. So we've got 0 add 10 divided by 2 is 5. 10 add 25 divided by 2 is 17.5. 25 add 40 divided by 2 is 32.5. And 40 add 60 divided by 2 is 50. We then multiply each of these values by their frequency. So we do 5 multiplied by 38 is 190. 17.5 multiplied by 36 is 630. 32.5 multiplied by 30 is 975. And 50 multiplied by 46, 2,300. We then add up all the values in this last column. So 19 add 630, add 975, add 2,330, and we get 4,095. So this is our estimate of the total values. We then add up our frequency and we get 150. So our estimated mean is 4,095 divided by 150. It's 27.3. So it's going to put it somewhere in this group. And then finally, the median. Well, the median is the total frequency, add 1, 150, add 1, divided by 2, 75.5 value. So first, let's identify which group that's in. So the first 38 are in the first group, 1 to 38. The next 36 are in the second group, 39 to 74. Well, that's just below 75.5, so it must be in the next group, which would have the next 30 values, 75 to 104. We're very close into that set because it's 75 and then it's 75.5, so it's right at the beginning of that group. So what do we need? We need to work out where we are. So we take 74, it's subtracted from 75.5, so we're 1.5 values into the group. Now the group size is 30, so we get 1.5 divided by 30, and we multiply it by the group size, which is 40 subtract 25, 15. So we've got 1.5 divided by 30 multiplied by 15. That's 0.75. We then add that to the number at the top of the previous group, which is 25. So 0.75 add 25, we're 25.75 into the group. And that's how we find out the value of the median. I hope this helps. Good luck.